So, we've got ourselves then a whole heap of amazing action to get ourselves sorted here with the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup. It is 5 rounds worth of action here today. It is going to be 5 races that we will be looking at overall in terms of the season. So now as we sit, we know what we've got to manage and deal with. But the next question is, 5 tracks, 5 British tracks. Who is going to find themselves as the best when it comes to the Malta GT Cup powered by Intercomp? My name's Shakespeare, James Otter, along with me for the ride here today as we get ourselves set for the action of the opening round of the championship here from Donnington Park. It should be an all-important piece of progress out there. But James, it's a circuit that everybody knows like the back of their hand, especially for those who are in the GT scene.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. GT cars out there going to be for an exciting ride around what is a more historical circuit over in Great Britain at the Donnington Park, or my personal favourite track across all of the various tracks that I'm used to racing in Formula One. Now I'm in GT, and now we're in some fabulous circuits. Donnington Park, favourite set of corners going through the S's into that Melbourne hairpin. Should make for some really, really hard and intense racing over that 45-minute period.
Yeah, let's just talk about the calendar and where we are going over the course of this season, where we are going to be heading to, as it will be Donnington Park, which opens out the season, Brands Hatch, just 7 days from now, and it's going to be quick fire because it's 5 different weeks that you get these 5 rounds of the championship. So Oulton Park comes along as the 3rd round, as the middle round of the championship. Snetterton, a little bit more open and expansive, and the higher speed circuits come to the end. Snetterton, and then, of course, the home of Formula Racing, Silverstone, to end the season out.
Yeah, Silverstone wrapping it up right at the end should make for an absolute blinder, to be fair, from a finale point of view. But 5 rounds of intense racing, of course, visiting the familiar red dots, if you will, of the Brands Hatch, Oulton and Snetterton circuits. So that should make for a little bit of an intrinsical affair in that sort of middle ground. But Silverstone wrapping up right at the end, so many opportunities for overtaking, should make for a really intense one, especially if we take it all the way to the wire.
Yeah, and to the wire, we might get to see it here as we get ourselves sorted. But let's talk Donnington Park here in your MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, powered by Intercomp in collaboration with GamingMalta, and of course, Hyundai, Intercomp, Sunshine Snacks, Level Academy, JACAP, and GX Trust, as we get ourselves ready for a Velocity Esports Racing production. But let's talk about this Donnington Park circuit, a track which is more known nationally than it is internationally. At one point, was going to host the Formula One World Championship, and a dramatic change to the circuit ultimately did not end up in fruition. But a track which has this fantastic flow to it. It's one of your favourite circuits, James. I look at this track, and the run down to the old hairpin, I think, is one of the most brilliant descents in motorsport.
Yeah, don't be deceived. It might be called the old hairpin, but it isn't a hairpin anymore. It's a fast right-hander going through towards Starkey's Bridge. But for me, it's that Starkey straight down to the S's and the Melbourne hairpin right at the end before you get to turn 11 at Goddard's, where you've got to really expect the drivers are going to be at the absolute limit. We see, obviously, just in Formula racing around this particular circuit, some more infamous moments. I'm thinking Ayrton Senna around this circuit all those years ago. But in GT racing, you can go wheel to wheel, keep it on the grey stuff, and with there's so much space around for the GT cars to really be at its absolute limit, this circuit should be an absolute cracker for a start of a new season.
Might be a little tougher to get overtakes working, I would say. Turn 1 at Redgate is one of the great places to get a pass. The old hairpin, which has never actually been a hairpin out there in terms of its track. It's a corner that has stayed relatively the same on its profile ever since its inception, is another place to pass. And then you're waiting for some of the half chances at McLean's and Coppice, and then the big one will be into the Fogarty S's, then the left and right, and that Melbourne hairpin. You can get that attack back at Goddard's, but it's off camber through the final corner, so everyone will have to be a little bit alert to the action that they will have to deal with. We're going to step aside, though, for just one quick moment when it comes to the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, because when we come back on the other side of this commercial break, we're going to be into qualifying, and we will see who is going to start setting the form here when it comes to our racing action here at Donnington Park.
This is the iconic oven-baked cheesy crick snack you've always loved. And this, it's Cricks too. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there isn't one. Cricks still has the same irresistible crunchy goodness, wrapped in a stylish new packet. Same delicious flavour, brand new look. So snack lovers, get ready to spot Cricks in the snack aisle. Cricks, same iconic taste, new stylish pack. Now in sharing pack size.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup powered by Intercomp. We are just moments away from jumping in with the start of qualifying and drivers looking to put their best times on the board around this Donnington Park circuit. We are pretty stoked to get action underway. When it comes to GT racing, it's possibly one of the most diverse categories that you can have out there. Many different manufacturers love to try and put themselves in the shop window to say that they are the quickest, but with a balance of performance, there are different strengths and different weaknesses that various different cars come into play. You get some that love the high speed, some that are a lot better through the corners, and so it becomes a balancing act, James, which I think will be really important to keep a note of as the season progresses.
Yeah, Lamborghinis, Lexus, McLaren, Mercedes, Nissan, Porsche, Audi, Bentley, and then BMW, and of course Ferrari, all making their way potentially onto the grid as well. A variety of GT3 cars, all with their pros and cons, and as you rightfully point out, you would expect that certain people will have catered to their potential raceability towards these particular cars. This is what's going to make for a very interesting scenario because, of course, no homologation, all going to be about the driver's ability to handle some really wicked machinery underneath them.
Yep, and that lot of power that they've got to deal with. They will have the help and the aid of traction control and the like, which will give them a chance then to deal with some very, very powerful cars. No, not as powerful as, say, the Formula single-seaters that we are used to seeing you and me, James, but there's still a lot that they have to deal with, that they battle with over the top of 150, 160 miles an hour at certain places, 180 at other circuits, to then have to jam on the brakes and deal with. Hopefully we'll get a chance to go out onto circuit in the next couple of moments. And in fact, we'll get the chance to right now with about 5 minutes and 40 seconds remaining here in qualifying. And our focus currently is on Abdulmuez Suhail, who is now charging down through the old hairpin. 9th position currently. It's Adrian Manduka who's the quickest on a 1:44 as things currently stand. And sorry, that was the last lap. Best lap of a 1:25.9, and really trying to get that Ford Mustang flying out there on circuit, dancing down through the Craner curves and looking to get a really nice charge through the third corner out there, of course, of the old hairpin. Now over towards the middle sector here, James, and this is where the balance of the car is going to be so important.
Yeah, the Project Aversio driver just trying to keep the car within the lines, of course, but really pushing that Ford to the absolute limit, of course, as he's now just heading to the top of the hill and chucking the car through the right-handers. Couple of right-handers here that could actually pose a bit of a threat if you're going side by side in the main race. And then this is the bit where we're expecting all of the main racing to be occurring down the Starkey Straight, where we of course expect the S's to be a bit of a critical one here in qualifying, but very well taken by the Ford Mustang.
Yeah, and this is a driver's eyes perspective here at the moment, so you get a real understanding of what the drivers get to look at here as they head into the Melbourne hairpin. One of the more unique corners in the world, just for the fact that it looks like you just pave it off the exit there at that penultimate corner, and very much a case like you fall off the face of the earth if you jump on wide. Goddard's corner to end the lap out. You got the likes of Aaron De Battista in second, Sheldon Muscat fourth, Kassar currently up in at third position. This is Aaron De Battista now that we go on board with heading into that Melbourne hairpin. Downhill braking zone makes it very difficult to get correct.
Yeah, it's got to try and keep in within the toe of the car in front potentially as well. Last little bit of a toe potentially down the straight, but the Audi looking a little bit like it's just off the pace now. I think he's on an in-lap actually at the moment, just keeping out the way of other drivers.
Yep, so trying to gear up as much power through the exit of the corner. I think this is gearing on for an outlap here, and now looking to get that start sorted. So, for at least this moment, Aaron De Battista staring down the back of his own teammate in the Aston Martin. Look at that, how much work's having to be done with the steering wheel through the opening corner. Fortunate enough, it hasn't invalidated the lap. 35-degree track temperature out there today, and we're expecting it to be optimum at the moment what this track is. So everyone who's looking for times is definitely in the right wheelhouse at this stage. De Battista are looking up the hill here, through now in towards the right they go, and at least for the moment coming out of McLean's, that's going to be off the circuit, and that's going to be the time really struggling. That Audi has a shorter wheelbase than a lot of the other cars out there, so it struggles to put the power down through the medium speed corners.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really struggling actually to get the rear to be compliant actually through the medium speed corners. This might pose a bit of a challenge as he goes through the Fokker TSs. We'll see how the car reacts over the bumps. Actually quite well taken here as well. And you know what? De Battista not afraid to get on the grass a little bit in that first sector as well. He's just going through the Melbourne hairpin now, chucking the car through that right-hander. Got to get on the power as early as you can. Really get the car to just spin the wheels straight down the main straight. And it looks like he's warming his tyres up once again. It may be an abandonment on that particular occasion. He's having another go as he goes through the Goddard's corner, avoiding that car, just maybe getting a bit of a tow actually as he heads through to Redgate.
Yeah, so now heading over towards the line, 129.1 with that attempt there, running a little bit wide, staying there in second, seeing Sheldon Muscat, who is such a strong driver when it comes to this category, in front. This could be a very, very big ordeal out there as we take the top here, as we look down through these wonderful corners in Assetto Corsa Competizione to get that run again very near to running off the circuit, and you can take a little bit too much out of the track compared to some of the other drivers around, and that is going to be what they don't want to deal with. Every single time you find yourself running wrong place, wrong time, a little bit over the top of the circuit, you really get the sense that this is a track that will punish you for being out of line.
It's your favourite corner as well, Old Hairpin. They struggled on the previous lap with that particular corner as well, just chucking the car through the right-hander and just spitting out wide. He's just going through the S's now. Once again, just a little bit shaky potentially on exit, but not bad actually from the Audi on this particular occasion. As the yellow flag waving as cars are getting out of the way, going through the Melbourne hairpin with just a little bit under a minute to go.
Yeah, so now we're starting to get to the end of qualifying. They are allowed to finish any laps they start. Manduka still currently on top. De Battista in second. And you're looking around. Sheldon Muscat currently now moves up to third with that 26.4. We'll take that. Kassar drops the place then. And an all-important time that goes along with it. Denzel Agius currently fifth fastest of the drivers. George Page in sixth position in the number 7 Ferrari. So there are drivers who can make stuff happen when it comes to racing. Up over the top then of McLean's, we focus with Page here, heading towards the middle sector of the lap and the dual apex corner here of Coppice. You throw the car in at the top of the hill as the checker flag comes out and look for as much drive as possible. The Project Averso Ferrari then needs to find a bit of pace through the middle sector and the final sector of the lap. Out to the Fogarty S's. That looked okay out there for these drivers, and looked that everybody was going to be fine with that as far as a time goes. But now looking to drive off the exit of the Melbourne hairpin, up the hill towards that final corner here of Goddard, and you've got to pin the car to the apex, because anything short of that and you're dropping time, the diamond line doesn't work as much. Over the line goes Parge, a 26.8, not enough to gain places. It doesn't look like there's many drivers out there who can put themselves in a position to improve, so it might just be that is that. Car 42 might be the only one who can, and that is Sheldon Muscat, who drives in towards the pit. So Adrian Manduka starts his season off the way he wants to, by being a quarter of a second clear in qualifying.
Yeah, Andrea Manduka absolutely nailing it for Ford as well, with a great lap time of a 25.952, finding 2.5 tenths on De Battista, who were looking a little bit shaky, but was actually pretty quick in the Audi in the end. And then Aston Martin with Muscat, then the first of the McLarens, the number 240 with Cesar in fourth, but then fifth. Fragnius in the other McLaren as well, just a little bit over 3/4 of a second separating him from pole. Manduka, great lap time from the Ford.
Yeah, and you got all sorts of drivers. Top six clear, and it's almost a second back to Lafela, who's there in 7th position. Then you got Jamie Smith, Sahil, who's there in 9th position, and as well as Schmeig, who rounds out the top 10 at 2 seconds adrift as far as qualifying goes. But a strong qualifying session from Adrian Manduka, who wants to set this season up the way he wants to. In the Malta GT Cup, he was second last year, ultimately, in terms of the action, so wants to go one better over Sheldon Muscat, and will want to do so at the very top level. We're going to take this moment to jump away, because when we come back, we'll be jumping into race time, and these drivers will all be saying, I want to be top dollar out there, or I'd say top pound at that point in time with this all-British run, and we will see who will be on the top in the opening round of the Malta GT Cup.
This is the iconic oven-baked cheesy crick snack you've always loved. And this, it's Cricks too. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there isn't one. Cricks still has the same irresistible crunchy goodness, wrapped in a stylish new packet. Same delicious flavour, brand new look. So snack lovers, get ready to spot Cricks in the snack aisle. Cricks, same iconic taste, new stylish pack. Now in sharing pack size.
There is a joy of being at Donnington Park under the shadow of Castle Donnington, and of course the wonderful circuit that this brings. There's a whole new atmosphere out there for this season, and there's a look for drivers that want to say that they're going to have a brand new champion to go and work with. For other drivers like Sheldon Muscat, it's a case of I'd like to be the same champion out there and hold things together, but it's a whole new world. We've got a new pope of all things here today, and we will be looking around and saying who is going to be at that highest echelon as these drivers now look to set themselves up here into their into their race mode, their one formation lap that they now look to sort themselves with to get themselves geared up and ready for racing. One car will start from the pits. That is Suhail, who will have to go from pit lane, but everybody else out there on track looking to get their tyres warmed up and into an operating window here to make sure that they are racing at their highest caliber.
Should be an absolute blinder nonetheless, to be fair. 30 points for the race victor here tonight after 45 minutes of racing. 24 points for second, 19 for third, and then going all the way down to 18th place. Right at the back, you get that singular point if you just finish. And credit as well to Manduka as well, because I believe he's the only person within this 18 to have actually selected the Ford. So showing that he has got the smarts and taking his runners-up trophy from last season and wanted to convert it with using all of the knowledge into this particular championship.
Yeah, a lot of McLaren sitting 4th, 5th and 7th in and around the likes of Gat and Elul also taking on the McLarens. A Lamborghini of Gat then and a couple of the BMWs there towards the back of Veladingli and also Borg are both there and looking to prove it. But Sheldon Muscat choosing the Aston Martin is also an interesting decision because it does come down to feel and preference for a lot of drivers, and they'll look around at the circuits they've got over the season. I think they will be locked for this entire season on what they do. So I'm going to say it's a question mark here for what do they feel they're going to get the most out of the car here for the course of a season that they've got.
Yeah, you've got 5 tracks, to be fair, and all of them are not of any kind of same value. You know, the difference between the likes of Donnington for this particular round and then heading over to Brands Hatch, there's so many significant differences. And, of course, going all the way through right to the end at Silverstone, where it is a completely different circuit again. So they've got to find the right balance whilst also considering what kind of car could they benefit from? Do they benefit from one that's high-powered and perhaps a little bit loose on the rear end? Or did we prefer something that they can really chuck the car into the corners for? And that is the difference between you picking, let's say, a Ford, where you've got all the power, and maybe an Aston Martin, where it's known for a little bit more of control under the corners.
Well, out then of Goddard's, they will now wait for the light sequence to give them their all-go-ahead. They can't afford to speed. They are locked to a limit here, and if they go over the top, it's an immediate drive-through penalty. But for your MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, we will start, and immediately a drive-through for Elul, who's been caught speeding as they now run down towards the opening corner of Redgate here, and a good start by Manduka gets the coverage that's needed. De Battista sits in line there for Intercomp in second position. Kassar dueling down here the Craner curves over towards turn number 3. Off the road goes Sheldon Muscat, gets contact there into the side, and George Parge in the Ferrari gets shuffled out the way and drops 3 spaces and maybe more on the run up here to McLean's.
Yeah, the Ferrari was a bit unlucky, to be fair, there as the driver returning back onto the track, hitting him off the circuit and causing him to lose those 3 positions. The Project Versio driver, his co-compatriot in the Ford, though, really good start towards the front.
Yeah, and now looking to really start driving away, if at all possible at this stage. 0.6 of a second to the good in the way that that drive away's worked at the moment. And you will note here in this 45-minute race on the timing tower, you can see all those orange number 1s out there. That indicates the mandatory pit stop that has to be taken over the course of this race. So they have to make sure that they make that work for them. There is no window for them here today in terms of when they need to take that pit stop. So that's very clear. Sometimes you'll see that a pit window will open, which will mean you have to pit within a certain time. Not so here in this this race, but De Battista will certainly try and keep himself in range, but a good start by Manduka, and immediately looking to pull open that gap at about 7, 6, 8 tenths of a second. They're trying to work through an opening lap that's clear, but now it's about settle down, find a rhythm, and we've seen that in the early stages that these drivers are all pretty much single file for the most part.
For our chief strategists out here tonight, if you do have to go into that mandatory pit stop, it's a mandatory refuel time of 25 seconds for this particular race. So they have to make sure that they stick within those particular limits. We've got a good race happening there, I believe, back in the back between Smith and Schmieg down in 8th and 9th place in the McLaren and the Aston Martin. But as it stands so far, Manduka really starting to push down right at the front here in that Ford. He's really pushing hard to get a bit of a gap on De Battista.
Maya Lafela there we were focusing on for the moment, so she's doing a good job at this stage, but Manduka clear at the front and now has broken away to the tune of 1 second, heading down to the Melbourne hairpin. Not any relation to Australia, but more rather the British, I would say, town of Melbourne, which is sat very quite nicely down at the end as we keep our focus then forward towards Goddard's corner and then up over the top and attacking towards the end of the lap again. Each and every lap, you're trying to build this margin. That's what we're going to be seeing over the course of these 45 minutes. How you build that margin, how you add 10th by 10th, because you don't just win this race straight away by blitzing clear. You need to win this race by being consistent, and that's going to be the crucial matter of fact. Dropping down here through the Craner curves into the old hairpin and immediately into the pits. Now comes Suhail in for that drive-through penalty that was administered not by any stewarding team, but more rather by the fact of the jump start.
Quattromarti, he's really racing at the moment between 14th and 17th at the moment. They're really battling at the back. But I tell you what, Manduka really pushing 4 tenths of a second faster at the front than his second place man. So I tell you what, that fight is going to be interesting to see what the second stint is going to be like if he's pushing as hard as he is now. Here's Quattromarti then on board with him, the 444 Ferrari, as he's just found a little bit more of a rhythm now on this particular lap.
Yep, so Quattromarti getting a good run, and that's Vela Dingley who is there just in front. So certainly trying to chase up, certainly trying to find any opportunity to gain that place. But at least right now, Quattromarti happy to get a good run coming out of Coppice Corner. And then this backstretch section that leads over towards the Fogarty S's as a lunge down the inside. It's very shallow of a line through and having to struggle and with no grip on the exit. There's the spin around. It's as simple as that. And Gabriel Quattromarti, all that hard work, well, you got to do it again, Sunshine.
Yeah, he's got to do it all over again, hasn't he? Going straight now into the Melbourne hairpin. He's lost not just the one position that he would have gained, he's lost another one as well. So now down to 16th place. At one point, battling up in 13th or 14th right at the start. So maybe a couple of mistakes. Are just trying his hardest to find a bit of a rhythm in that Ferrari.
Yep. And a lot of these drivers will keep an eye out on rhythm because there is a consistency number that is generated here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, which gives a lot of drivers an opportunity to go through. That's the drive-through served by Alul, who will just come out of the pits. And I will correct myself, there is your pit window. It has just opened, so 5 minutes you cannot serve a pit stop in, but then you can pit all the way until 5 minutes to go in this race. It's a game of give and take out there in terms of finding the pit stop, and drivers will have different preferences. Some would like to run the tank dry, run a heavy stint as they go out. Others quite like the 50-50.
Yeah, I think we're going to be expecting I think it may just be actually that Manduka is racing with a slightly lower amount of fuel, maybe an early pit stop potentially. But that Ford is looking so powerful, so intense and so grippy around the circuit. Still on board with Quattromarti though, as he's just getting closer and closer once again. Very quick, isn't he, Quattromarti, when he's not in a racing scenario and in a one-lap pace? He's definitely got it. He's just not able to get into a bit of a racing scenario as he's just going through the Fogarty S's and now into the Melbourne hairpin. Is he going to try and pull a move then on this BMW in front of him?
Well, looking at Borg, who stays very stoic through the middle of the Melbourne hairpin up to Goddard's corner and searching about to be more in this battle. It's going to be tough then to find the next move that's there. Wide into the corner goes Borg, but will be able to get some drive coming off of the exit. Vela Dingley, I think, is going to give a tiny bit of toe here. Might be the saving grace here to Redgate Corner. You can use a little bit of that pit exit as well to try and get a run sorted, but ultimately it is stays as you are between those three. But you are right, Quattromani here is definitely showing that there is an aggressive factor of, I've got pace and I want to use it.
Yeah, he definitely has got the power in the Ferrari power unit, of course, in the back of it, but he's just able to chuck the car through the corners. In the first sector, he made a little bit of a mistake through Redgate, but then going through the rest of the corners around the circuit, he's absolutely all over the back of Borg and the BMW. And while this is all happening, he's on the grass as well, is the BMW, and that could open up an opportunity. Here comes Quattromani down the inside. Great move from the Ferrari.
Yeah, needed to get that slowed up at the apex there at the middle and did just about enough to manage that pass. So well constructed and a very, very nice move that's got itself all nicely put together. I do want to keep an eye, though, on Kassar in third position here as Johan Borg lost the place. Sean Kassar here is keeping himself very close to the back of Aaron De Battista, another one of the Intercomp VMD SimSport drivers. They are second, third, and fourth out there at this stage, and you look around at Adrian Manduka for Project Averso, it's very much the lone wolf out there at the front of this field. So I look around at these drivers behind, and I'd start to maybe have a little cause of concern that they are going to try and coalesce together and work as a tandem to try and get themselves back to Manduka. If you imagine a case of watching the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia, which will be this month, it will be a case of using the peloton to grab yourself closer to the breakaway.
I tell you what, the McLaren and the Aston Martin actually are just keeping on as even as well, so they're working with each other quite nicely to just put that pressure on De Battista, who's obviously got a slightly different methodology for this 45-minute race. Of course, now we're 10 minutes in to this race here, as Muscat is actually making that move through up to fourth, so he's looking fairly sharp, actually, as that Aston Martin, as he's just keeping the honours even with the likes of Cesar and obviously De Battista. So I'm looking forward to seeing later on in this race what's going to happen between the pair of these, because I think there's going to be a little bit of a close proximity after the pit stops.
Yeah, and Denzel Agius there, we just saw in the back of shot, he's under immense amounts of pressure too, because George Page is trying to find any opportunity to move on through. And Page here, who remember was shuffled out on the opening lap after contact with Sheldon Muscat. Stewards will have a look. Look how close down the Craner curves into the old hairpin. They'll now run under Starkey's Bridge and look for anything you can. And every time I look at that Ferrari, it is built for medium speed corners. It's built for a circuit like this, trying to get up over the top of the corner. Not going to quite find it here, but again, climbing up to Coppice, and it's a case of how do you unlock the exits here. This is a thinking driver's circuit. I would say the straights here, I wonder if you'd say the same here in terms of a track like this one, James. The straights are about 100 meters too short pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about making sure you maximise every corner. And I think even though you might think, oh, that ruins the racing, no, it doesn't. You can see when people make the mistake, they pay the price as a result. And it is getting more and more intense with each passing race. These Ferraris at this part of the race are looking extremely strong as a car in itself. And that is helping the Ferrari drivers out there really push around the circuit and keep that pressure on those around them. The McLarens are not looking particularly strong at the moment, I will say that.
Yeah, the McLarens, I think, need to find an operating window. I think they need a little bit more time to get themselves situated here, and they've got that really long wheelbase. It's a car that is built to be very slippery in a straight line, so I think it's a case of take your medicine here, and especially at the first three rounds of the championship, it's a circuit of take your medicine, and if you do take your medicine, so to speak, here, you will be gaining it later on. So if they're quick later on in the season at Snetterton, at Silverstone, you know, it's how much can you damage limit with the balance of performance to get yourself back later on.
Good couple of laps from De Battista, started to put himself in a bit of a no man's land now. So Cesar and Muscat in their own little battle in the McLaren and the Aston Martin. So this is where you'll start to see now them really working with each other. Are they going to try and battle and potentially battle for that third spot, or are they going to work with each other to try and begin the closing down of the gap against De Battista?
Oh, Kassar really having to be aggressive over the Fogarty S's. It opens the door up. Sheldon Muscat, Aston Martin trying to dive down the inside. and that is a case of 003. Now the position for Sheldon Muscat, and at the moment he'll be looking to try and get a little bit more of a place. I'd say he's done a wonderful job. Now looks to pick up the run off the exit of the final corner, just about gets to the drive, so Sean Cassar will have to sit in line, and Sheldon here has got to chase up to De Battista. Lost 4/10 on the last lap.
Yeah, not particularly strong, but De Battista just now beginning his own little purge in this race, trying to find as much time as he can find against Manduka, who's looking so strong in that Ford Mustang at the moment. But keep an eye out on Pache at the moment down in P6, because I do think he's on a little bit of a mission at the moment after that incident on the first lap. He's looking strong, and he's in a Ferrari. This part of the race, the Project Versio driver, is going to be at the absolute limit in this first part of his stint.
Well, Samuel Mifsud here is going to be the first driver to jump in and make a pit stop, and that was from 10th position on the road. So in the box right now, look, and it looks like here that's 19th position might be where they come out. So fuel and tyres will be there, and look at that race timer there. That's been about 5 minutes then on the lane for that lap, or 5 minutes on the lap. So this looks like it's been a much more dramatic moment for Samuel Mifsud somewhere over the course of this race.
Doesn't surprise me if he's gone this early and he's in the Ferrari again. If it's looking like that they're stronger in that middle sectors where all the medium speed corners are, then he'll just want to get as much race time as he can, maybe on a harder tyre with more fuel, because he knows that he can just power his way around the rest of this circuit and find the most amount of time he possibly can. But he is just about getting lapped now from the front runners. Manduka, De Battista just making their way down the main straight now, heading into Redgate.
Yep, so that will put him 2 laps down and a lot more by the time that damage, I'd assume it is, for the car gets fixed and sorted. But the gap now 3.4 seconds here at the front for Adrian Manduka. That'll be a smile from ear to ear at this stage of the racing action. So De Battista now has a lot of work to do, and that Ford is absolutely flying in comparison to the Audi, which can be a little bit of a highly strung machine by comparison. Up to Coppice Corner with your race leader here, Adrian Manduka, who has always been in and around here. This multi-sim racing scene has always been one of the top drivers out there, but this is what I think makes it very difficult to beat Manduka. He's more known as a racer than a qualifier. Qualifying, I'd say, is his weak suit, as we watch there the Lamborghini of Jamie Gatt making the pass done on Vela Dingley for that position of 16th. So take that, but you won't take it if you run off wide at Goddard's with that level of loss there. So that's a thank you very much. I'll come back through.
Sounds like a little bit of an issue when it kept hitting the brake pedal when you're actually in front of someone, and maybe you're just using him as a little bit of a brake marker. Potentially always made a mistake himself, though, going off at Redcar. Nearly losing the car. Completely did Vela Dingley, but managing to just hold it. He might get overtaken by Borg here as he tries to find all of the power that he's now going to lose down this main straight. In fact, he's just a little bit too far behind, actually, is Borg at the moment. But going back to Manduka for a second, you know what? For a man that isn't able to quote-unquote qualify, 2.5 tenths it was between him and second place De Battista, and he's just managing the race so effectively at the moment after 15 minutes of this race.
It's not that he can't qualify, it's that the drivers around him typically qualify better. He finds himself often second or third or fourth when it comes to putting the car in qualifying, and then makes up the places during the race, and that's what makes him a threat. So he's built that margin. Now he's dealing with lap traffic of the same category of class. So this is going to be an art and a masterclass to try and get that sorted. Getting through drivers quickly, not being held up too much, I think is a rather important fact of matter as we go on board with your race leader. Immediately out of the way goes Vela Dingley here, and this is one of the things about this style of racing. It's not mandatory to actually get out of the way of these drivers. It's actually advisory blue flag, so the responsibility is on the passing car to get through.
And Vela Dingley actually making the same mistake as Coca Patria actually a little bit earlier on as he goes through the corner at Goddard. So yeah, very peculiar set of events happening down at the back. But yeah, absolutely right. Fair sportsmanship actually between the drivers, keeping it nice and clean and not maximising the opportunity to make sure he's made another mistake at Redcar as well. I think he's trying to get out of the way of other lap cars as well. Cesar Muscat making their way through third and fourth.
Yep, so they dance on through that. Would have scared a little bit there on the exit, Sheldon Muscat. And whoa, Abdul Muez Sahil going around. So that is coming out then of, I believe that's going to be near the top end of the circus. That's McLean's. And it's going to be a very awkward rejoin there back into 15th position. That's your race leader going by. And that Ferrari would not have loved having that spin, and I would have said that was grabbing a little bit of grass off the exit to send the car flying off to the inside like that.
Yeah, definitely. He'll have touched the curb on the outside line and caused a bit of a spin. Put it on the inside line into the grass, further spin, dirty tyres. I think he'll manage to keep it out the wall, though, so nothing in the way of damage potential we'll see, though, as he's just about to go through the Melbourne hairpin, and, of course, that's where the pit entry is.
Yeah, so you go through the hairpin and you look to attack up over the top of the hill. Now, there isn't a case of taking a line to the inside to jump in. There is that little pit lane there, but they don't use it here in this race, that shortcut. And one of the most interesting things about that shortcut run to the pits, it also helped Ayrton Senna set the fastest lap of the race in 1993 in the European Grand Prix. So that certainly worked out for him. But then you do exit the final corner and then jump into the pits, and that gives you that run through. Jens Schmieg then currently in 8th position in the middle of a very nice group of cars here, because you've got Myla Ferler, she's there in 7th, and then Jamie Smith, who's there in 9th in the Aston Martin, trying to keep things there. Jens Schmieg doing a very good job of keeping this race quite honest at the moment into turn 1 at Redgate. And again, car off there, that will be Vela Dingley that they've got to try and get by, and they managed to. But this is a 3-car scrap right now, and these are for some all-important championship points. Down here, 7th, 8th, and 9th. In terms of scoring championship points, you're looking around and saying this is the difference between scoring 12 points or 10 points if you're down in 9th.
And with a short season like this one as well, it's ever so critical that they maximise as many points as they possibly can. The German keeping the Leferrier under pressure at the moment. She's doing a decent job, to be fair, in this little train of midfield cars at the moment. A couple of McLarens and, of course, the Aston Martin of Smith just tucking it behind in 9th place as they just head their way down Starkey Straight then into the Fogarty S's, as we've got another car off the track, I think, trying to avoid any kind of collisions potentially with the blue flags being waved.
Yep, so that was Borg then off the road, trying to avoid any dramas there. But Jens Schmieg on the brakes, down into the Melbourne hairpin, and into the pits comes De Battista and Cassar. So they're making their call, and they're making it early, and I'd argue at this stage of the race, they kind of have to do something.
Got to do something different, haven't they, versus the rest of the field at the moment, especially that Ford Mustang leading the front. Manduka absolutely flying is the number 93, as he's just he's basically a man on his mission on his own at the moment. He's just a one-man band flying around the circuit with his big heavy V8 in the back of the car. Fantastic. Keep an eye out, though, as everyone else is just trying to manage their own races. The midfield is where we're going to start to see it getting pretty interesting. Are they all going to follow suit, or are they going to make some differences themselves, I wonder?
Well, we haven't seen really anybody jump in. Vela Dingley, I think, is the only other one who's a lap down at the moment. So for De Battista and Cassar, where they come out, I think is going to be really interesting. There leaves Aaron De Battista from the pits. Clean air to work with, and 12 seconds to Bart Schuss, who's there in 8th place in front. So they've got a lot of space to work with, and this was what I would call the most ideal condition out there. Chris Gatt in a little bit of a scrap right now with Cassar, who's only just come out of the pits ahead, and that was crucial clearance there for Sean Cassar.
Accelerate Racing's Chris Gatt doing pretty decent, as well as his racing with Cassar, but of course, again, it was critical for Cassar to get in front of Gatt, being the person that's just come out of the pit lane. De Battista in the Audi. The Audi's still pretty strong around this circuit, despite the long wheelbase, so I would expect that he's going to be easily closing down the gap on those in front of him. In fact, the gap going to be closing down pretty rapidly as well, is that for that number 26 Audi.
Yeah, and now you're starting to see it here against Denzel Agius, who has dropped back, actually. So something's happened to Denzel here to see that time fall away a little bit here. You can see Mark's currently down in 8th position, so a mistake on this lap has seen the likes of Shiz go through. I wonder whether he's come together with George Page or something of that ilk, because we've got more drivers jumping in right now. Louis is a little in the pits, and look at that front. That tells you all you need to know about how damaged that is. The front clip is trying to fall off.
Yeah, the Aversio Den's car now going to be straight into the pit. Got to get repairs on that car as well. The splitter will be absolutely destroyed on the front of that McLaren, so that will be a longer pit stop than really is needed. But unfortunately, if that was a collision with Pass, then I feel really sorry, because that's not the first time he's been involved in some kind of collision throughout this race, and it'd be really unfortunate if that is the scenario. George Pass now up to third place as he's getting chased down by Schmieg in fourth. Again, all of these drivers, though, yet to make a pit stop. 23 minutes to go.
Yep, so Jens Schmieg eyeing up, and there's been a lot of change in and around this section out there as in comes Adrian Manduka, the race leader, to make a pit stop. Schmieg now has really closed in, and with the way that George Page has dropped time as well, I would suggest there has been a coming together out there on circuit that we haven't seen out there overall. So George Page here, I think, is going to be in a little bit of a sheepish situation. Dives into the pits. Will Jens Schmieg follow suit? The answer to that then is going to be yes. And so now it's a case of who decides to stay out. So Jamie Smith will stay out then in second position, and they take this run down this slightly downhill pit lane, which means you can slightly overcook it. There's Denzel Agia still in the pits, and I would assume having to get the damage repaired, which is gonna hurt for as long as it takes, because you're gonna need every single piece of panel beater and flex tape to put that back together again.
Yeah, a couple of Aston Martins at the front, though, 14 on 1, so they're clearly understanding the car underneath them perhaps needs a more 50-50 kind of race here, which means they'll be pitting probably within the next couple of laps, you would expect. But at the moment, you've got Bart Grice here at the moment, who's just holding his own in the Durant Squad Racing's BMW, number 99. A very simple livery, but gorgeous.
Yeah, but look at Adrian Manduka and that time between him and Aaron De Battista. Remember, it was 5 seconds before coming into the pits. Look at it now, it's nothing.
Yeah, the undercut working an absolute treat for De Battista. We knew that the Audi was looking strong, and there, Manduka absolutely nailing the pit stop, but he's going to have a bit of pressure behind him. Will he be able to earn all that time back on the fresher tyre?
Well, they are in a very deadly battling situation here. They've got traffic in front. The likes of Borg and Mifsud are there in front that they have to deal with, and they are trying to keep themselves alert. There is another drive-through penalty for Alul. That would be for off-track limits out there. And look at the attack off the exit of the corner there. That rotation through the middle of the corner from Adrian Manduka. He was lighting up the rear tyres of that Mustang, and the Audi looks a little bit more planted at the moment. You've got the brute force power of the American car in front. The German car there behind sits through. Jamie Smith then in the pits will allow these drivers to jump up to third and fourth. Still waiting for 2 to come in and make a stop. But for the moment, De Battista trying to reel in the line slightly wide at Red Gate Corner, and that opens up a 10th.
Yeah, 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second it remains at the moment. So De Battista holding station with the likes of Manduka, but then this part of the circuit is where the Mustang has been absolutely lethal. But the Audi is still keeping that pressure on the Ford, and I'm wondering if Manduka may have just been caught a little bit off guard by how powerful that undercut is here at Donnington Park. And now they've got a couple of lap cars here. That could pose an even further threat to what the Ford Mustang driver would have thought, actually, this could be a clean run, and he's wide again.
Yeah, but you can get away with it there at Coppice Corner because you just got to keep the right foot in, and then you get that drive as you come along here. A little bit of toe along the straight here, over towards the Fog TS. Worked again, but look at that.
There it is.
In the middle of the corner.
Here
comes the move. De Battista down to the inside, and as Sheldon Muscat hits the lane, he gets himself straight down on the inside line. He takes the race lead, and Adrian Manduka has it all to do with 20 minutes left.
I said the lap car could pose a challenge, and now it's all about Manduka. What's he going to be like now? He's got a car directly in front of him, racing for that first place, racing for that lead, and racing for those 30 points.
Yeah, but keep an eye out. 30 for a win, 24 for second, 19 for third. That was Sheldon Muscat leaving the pits there and was only going to be a couple of seconds behind. Bart Shiz is the driver who is yet to stop in the 99 BMW in front of them at 7 seconds down the road. But for De Battista and Manduka, they are in a dogfight, and the moment that they start battling a little bit too hard amongst each other, Sheldon Muscat is going to be reveling this because he'll have fresher tyres than anybody else of the main rivals battling.
Oh, the Mustang, though, so sharp as they go through McLean's into Coppice. Keep an eye out on De Battista through this corner, and now he's got a problem of potentially a lapped car in front here. Straight out of there, you can see Manduka straight on the power, so much quicker, wants to get this move done as quick as he possibly can. But with that lapped car in front, could that pose a further challenge, I wonder? Going through then into the set of S's, but there again, not so much of a challenge this time, and it remains on as even between the front two, getting in the wing mirrors.
Yeah, trying to feint that inside, using every tip and trade in the book to make a move, and it's not quite happening out there at this point. Drive-through penalty called as well now for Borg, who's been off the road too much, but De Battista is looking behind and a little bit here at Adrian Manduka, wondering what more. Bartsch's in the pits, and that will re-inherit the race lead back to De Battista, who leads this field. Aaron De Battista from Adrian Manduka. Sheldon Muscat at about 2.5 seconds adrift in third place, has a lot of work to do to pull this back in. A look from the rear wing, down through the Craner curves and over towards the old hairpin. It's a set-up corner here, set up the run off the exit, get that drive, and then under Starkey's bridge and along. No bridge there here at the moment, but then up over along through the Schwanz curve, and now up into the right of McLean's, the middle sector of the lap. Every single corner is about how do I gain a bit more for the next one.
Manduka was a 10th faster on that previous lap versus De Battista. The pressure certainly on. There's no issues in terms of lap cars now at this particular point, so it's all going to be about racing. Once again, getting into the wing mirrors of De Battista, trying to put that pressure on him to force a mistake. We've seen it a couple of times in the midfield, but these are the front runners. Are they going to feel that pressure? Is a mistake going to come into Melbourne? Not on this occasion. Hitting the apex to perfection is De Battista.
Yep, so this is pretty much a case of hit your marks and try and hold and stave a chance at bay. And even though they're as close as this, I think De Battista will be happy knowing that there aren't any rash moves being thrown down the inside. It's very much a patience play at this moment here from these drivers, and they won't be too upset with the way that this sort of race is starting to pan out. But now it becomes a case of, well, if you can't find a move right now, it's when can you find a move? Because with 16 minutes to go and they're running around doing about 1 minute 20 lap times, you've maybe only got about, I would say, 13 chances, 14 chances. If you want to try and make this race work for you, if you want to win this race, you've got to find a way of getting a pass done and also getting one done where you're not getting stuck in the overtake, which happens so often here at a circuit like Donnington Park.
Trading fastest laps between the pair of them in terms of best performances between the pair of them on each lap, because 600ths of a second for De Battista in his favour on this occasion versus Manduka. But on this particular lap, willing to get into the grass once again is the Audi. So is Manduka starting to see potentially a bit of a complacency streak from the Audi, or is he just feeling so confident now in that Audi on this particular stint that he's willing to take a few risks, despite being in the lead of this race? Oh, excellently crafted, though, from Manduka through Melbourne. Brilliant.
Yeah, but here's the issue. You can see it here in a straight line that the Audi is just able to get through the gears slightly quicker than the Ford here, and is just managing to stave off the gap. The acceleration factor is important, but top speed at this stage, I think, is with the Ford. So we can see Manduka, he's definitely able to close up in certain areas of the track, but in others, it's just the case that De Battista's got a car that works in a different part of the track, and it just keeps the rubber banding pretty much quite similar. 0.3 of a second. This is the closest that Manduka gets on the lap here, down into the old hairpin, but out of here in the next couple corners, this is where we see the Audi start to stretch its legs.
Yeah, that's the thing. Through the main straights where there's more, where you can keep your car flat, the Audi's got the advantage, but through the corners, the Mustang is just so sharp. The rear end, he's got so much confidence, Manduka. Going through the final corner, actually, to be fair, at Goddard's, you can see he gets on the power so much quicker than anyone else, and he's willing to do that because he's got so much confidence in the car around him at the moment. They're just heading now into the S's. We'll see how the cars react as they go over the curbs, and once again, the Audi just jumping a little bit at the rear, and that's offering Manduka a potential opportunity with the lap car in front as well. Gets into his wing mirror. He's definitely looking for it. He's getting more and more closer. This is going to get tasty.
It is, and they got to get by Gat here on the outside as they head to the final corner. Manduka late in on the brakes, then just about chucks the car in through the corner. Needed to get that clearance and does so. Denzel Agius now with a drive-through penalty that needs to be served out there on circuit. They've got no traffic now out there on circuit for another 5 seconds out there, where the second of the Gats find themselves here in the Lamborghini. So they've dealt with Chris Gat, and now they've got one more to go and deal with on circuit, down to 13 minutes. And this is where all the focus lies, because they are thinking about this gap. They're pulling away to a tune of about 4 seconds here to Sheldon Muscat. So they are trying to race hard here. And I think this is Manduka saying, I don't want this to be a race where I'm just looking behind in the mirrors and we allow more drivers in. This is a patience play, trying to keep as many drivers from VMD Intercomp Simsport out of this battle to make it 1v1.
Project Aversio's Mustang, though, is so sharp going through McLaren's and copies. It's clearly the strongest corners that the Ford can offer, getting so close as they go through into the S's. And once again, Audi taking far too much curb on that occasion. That's offering an opportunity. Is Manduka's going to have to go around the outside for this to work? Is he going to see it, though? He's just partially in front. Has he got the grip going around the outside? It's been one hell of a move. Not on this occasion. The Audi just able to hold on. But you can see the pressure starting to mount on De Battista.
The amount of tessellation going through over the anti-cut curbs there at the Goddard chicane, that was enough for De Battista to say that he is feeling vulnerable at the moment, and you don't want to give Adrian Manduka eyes of grandeur out here at Donnington Park, which is very much what they've got. Another piece of traffic now to get the pick sorted. That is Gat in front, that they can manage to try and find that, and chasing down the Craner curves again. Adrian Manduka has been staring at the back of that Audi thinking, which way do I get the pass done on Aaron De Battista? He's tried left, he's tried right, he's tried up, he's tried down, but now this is the corner I think he needs to try and find it here. That corner of McLean's, I think, is the ticket if it has to go to the final lap.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the one that sets up the corner, and then potentially a bit of an unorthodox move at Coppice, you'll have to say. We'll have to see down the Starkey Straight, though, that they will go, and much closer. That toe going to be extremely powerful for the Mustang. He's trying to get down the inside, but around the outside he will look. The move is not going to be there available straight away, but are we going to see more of the curb? Yes, once again, the Audi willing to take as much curb, but on this occasion, Manduka not able to benefit off the back of it. It might have to be a dive if he looks straight into Melbourne. Not on this occasion, and they hit the apex perfection once again. A little bit of a defensive effort from De Battista. He knows he's not the faster driver, and remember, he pitted earlier. Those tyres are not going to be feeling as good towards the end of this race with 10 minutes to go.
Worth noting, Quattramani is down in the pits and is probably the final taker down in the lane, which will mean that everybody has cycled on through and made at least one pit stop in this race. So Quattramani will now look to fall backwards here, but looking like it's going to be a case of just outside the top 10 potentially, because that is Chris Gatt going through in the Accelerate Racing. McLaren now moves into 10th place. So we've got a race on our hands for 10th, a race on our hands for the race lead out there overall. And there are some quiet races out there, like Jamie Smith, for example, in P5, having a wonderful race out there at this stage. 8 seconds clear of George Page.
14 clear points at the moment for him, and it's a bit of a no man's land for Jamie Smith, but the Aston Martin able to just find his own rhythm and just feel comfortable out there, does the #1 Aston. So it'd be very interesting to see what the rest of the season looks like for him. Is it going to continue to be a no man's land, or is he actually going to put some pressure on those in front, or is he going to fall back a little bit? That's to say, we'll never know what happens. We'll just have to keep tuning in each week here on Velocity. So it's going to be an absolute blinder nonetheless. Back towards the front, Manduka really putting pressure on De Battista, but once again, no issues whatsoever for De Battista. He's able to hold off the pressure for the Project Aversio Ford Mustang, but he's got now a couple of lapped cars in front coming up here. That could pose a further threat for De Battista, like it did for Manduka.
There's 3 of them. You've got to get by Myla Fairler. You've got to get past David Vella-Dingley and Samuel Mifsud, who are all there in front. De Battista's got to run the gauntlet, and that'll be helpful because Mafela's run off the road, and so that's the easy one then to go and get by. So De Battista, 1 clear, now needs 2 more down the Craner curves. The old hairpin awaits again Here, the fast right-hand bend off the exit. Oh, Vela Dingley was right there on that exit section and having to go around the outside of Starkey's corner. That wasn't very helpful either for Adrian Manduka. I'd say tit for tat. That was equal in terms of what they both lost in that moment in time. And Sheldon Muscat is quietly closing this one in. He's now only, I would say, about 2 seconds off the back of this group. And that could be a big threat late on in this race with 8.5 minutes to go. Again, looking to the mirrors here from Adrian Manduka. But it's just that. Look at the mirrors. Look out! Ooh. Contact there. And it's going to be huge with Samuel Mifsud. Somehow there's a balk for Adrian Manduka. How are they still 1 and 2 like that?
Oh, that is absolutely unbelievable. The lap car just not getting out the way in time, and De Battista hitting the back end of the lap car as that caused damage to the diffuser to the front end. Is the Audi now under going to be even more pressure from the Ford Mustang behind?
And the Aston Martin, which has loomed into distance. Sheldon Muscat is now there. Look at the time they lost, 1.1 and 1.3 seconds respectively from these drivers. If De Battista has damage to the front and it's going to be a little bit slower in a straight line, these laps are going to be like Chinese water torture hours here for him. He's got so much work he's got to do to hold on right now. Adrian Manduka has got to find a way through in the next 2 laps. Otherwise, Sheldon Muscat is going to be upon him like a rash.
Yeah, remember, Manduka actually crashed into the back of De Battista as well as a result of that little bit of a fracas, if you will, with the lap car. And as you said, Muscat been gently wheeling his way straight into this situation. And now an opportunity is available potentially for the number 14 Aston Martin.
Opportunity knocks, but definitely not close enough just yet. On the brakes once more to the Fogarty S's, and this has been where we've been keeping the focus. Manduka loves that drive out the exit of the corner, and he might have to be desperate. Look at the scraping there to the front of the Ford. That tells you all you need to know, that there's damage for Adrian too out there at this moment in time. So neither of them at 100%. The only car that is the one behind that is stuck pretty much at 1 second, unable to really get the legs to pull on through. 6 minutes, 24 seconds remaining, and looking at the lap times they're doing of 1:26s, I would put it down on the line that we've got about 5 laps to go.
Yeah, 2/10 slower on that occasion was Muscat. So obviously the front two have recognised the challenge coming from the Aston Martin, have decided to put a shift in. But of course, if there is damage to the front bumpers of both of the cars and the diffusers respectively, the front tyres will just be dragging across the ground. And with each corner, those tyres could start to become seriously shredded. This is going to go all the way down to the wire. Fantastic.
And close again to 0.2 of a second up through McLean's, leaning at Coppish Corner. This is the one that you got to open up on the brakes at the plateau. And the Audi then gets a lot more narrow through. But now Manduka picks the run up, trying to go to the outside. Oh, he crosses the beams, straight back to the inside, looking for that move. Does he throw it down there? And that is huge on the brakes from Aaron De Battista. But does that stymie the run off the exit here of the Fogarty S's? Here comes Manduka again to Melbourne, trying to find a move. Looks on the outside. Oh, straight down the inside. There's contact and throws it in like it's a dirt speedway. Sheldon Muscat redresses the place back, but it gives De Battista the gap.
Yeah, the gap was there because, of course, he opened the door, did Manduka, but I think, there's a little bit of a lag spike as well, I think, as he just crashes into the back of the Ford Mustang. Manduka's going to feel so hard done by if he doesn't win this race. He's lost so much time to De Battista, but, of course, the Ford is so much better than the Audi in the middle speed corners. You should see that gap close up again. This race is still not over.
It's 1.3 seconds, but it's old Father Time that's knocking on the door and saying you are running out of opportunities. It's a case of it will take at least a lap to get back, and it will take a bit more. And now he's overdriving the car, running deep for the second consecutive lap at the old hairpin. This is a case of Adrian Manduka trying to do the world's work, but running out of time. Missed apex going through McLean. Sheldon's going to be there, and looking at Coppish Corner in the Aston Martin. No chances there. Traffic in front as well.
I'm wondering if he's got damage again now. Further damage as a result of that collision with Muscat. That could pose challenges. De Battista really needs to get past the lap car ASAP, otherwise he's going to lose that time that he's earned off of the back of the likes of Manduka and Muscat. Is he going to get past it? Or just on this occasion, ever so slightly, just managing to squeeze by.
Yeah, but it keeps the gap at about a second, and the worry is still very much there that you can use the McLaren then as a pick to run up to that next section of road, and Adrian's still giving himself every opportunity in this race to make sure that this one still has a conclusion that is satisfactory at this point. Out of Goddard's, traffic pulls over to the left-hand side of the circuit. That is Alul, who will have to get out of the way. But remember, Manduka's got to make the pass safely and lunges him down at turn one. There's no other scenario for it.
Ooh.
Turns across the nose. Manduka in the gravel. And now it's 1-2 out there for those drivers. Manduka will feel like Alul was being way too aggressive, leaving not enough room out there on track. But remember, it's Manduka's responsibility to make the pass on the lap car.
Yeah, blue flags in this particular event, if you're just catching in, doesn't mean that the car in front has to give way. It's just an advisory in this scenario. Manduka just finding frustration for the fact that he's no longer leading this race, makes a rash move, and now he's down to third.
And it's the story of the race. Had complete control at the start, and it was all about the drive that came so important after the pit stops there. The time that was taken down, and finally is going to get the clearance. I'm sure there will be a signal of I'm going for first as he goes by, but at least at the moment for Adrian Manduka, he will be absolutely kicking himself. 2 seconds, the gap at the front, but Adrian Manduka now is pretty much in Nowheresville, watching Sheldon Muscat drive into the distance, knowing that Aaron De Battista here is 2 laps away from Sanctum.
Gap is around about 2 seconds going through the corners at the moment, but Muscat has been really doing quite well in this second stint here. I don't 100% believe that this race is 100% over. He's found 2 tenths actually on the front runner, as we've got people making mistakes down at the back. This is the battle between Vela Dingley and Gat down in 16th and 17th place at the moment. That's the BMW and Lamborghinis as he just gets the move done, does Gat. Late breaker from Vela Dingley to hold the corner. Melbourne, nice little switch back though from the Lamborghini. Fantastic.
Yeah, very nice move, and they've got drivers behind, like the second of the Muscats there in 12th position.
Oh.
Huge lunge back up the inside. Didn't want to turn in through the corner.
Oh.
There's the contact, and into the wall then goes Vela Dingley. Muscat they're going through. Agius also finding a way by. So that is the battle 12th and 13th. At the moment, and now look at them, they are right together out on track here. So in front, and just off the road, there goes Muscat then driving off in the Ferrari, and that will allow Denzel Agius now up into 12th.
Yes, getting a little bit of a mixed bag now. 55 seconds left in this race, so now is all going to be very much squeaky bum time for the drivers as well. Back towards the front as De Battista is trying to keep that gap between him and Muscat, but of course Muscat has got that drive. He's got to make a move as well on the likes of the lapped car of Borg, who's just getting out of the way. But De Battista's had an absolute blinder of a potentially a penultimate lap with a 1:27.5 versus Muscat's 27.8. He's absolutely pushing to the limits.
Well, with 1 lap to go, Aaron De Battista will realise that he's got multiple seconds in the back pocket, and he will have a margin over his own teammate that he can smile about at this point. Sheldon Muscat has been a little off the pace here today, and I wouldn't say he was at his level best for this opening round, but he's someone who does develop into a season and becomes a very strong threat once he's got a handle of the car that he chooses to use. Aaron De Battista knew he had to do a lot of work to close on back the gap as the timer expires here at Donnington Park. He knew that he had 5 seconds to chase down on Adrian Manduka with the pit stop. When he came out at 1 second behind, he knew the race was on. When he found himself with the move to jump up using lap traffic as a pick, it was there. He staved off the charge of all that were there around, and in the bright sunny skies, here of Derbyshire. It's now a case of one final car to clear, and does, with Jens Schmieg in 8th position, that he puts a lap down out of the Melbourne hairpin, heading over towards Goddard. And right now, it's a case of saying that you can stand on top. You can say that all that the world could throw in the MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, you can take it. Aaron De Battista comes to the line and takes the season opener at Donnington Park.
How did Manduka not win that race? He's been so sharp in that Ford Mustang, but what a performance from De Battista, who benefited from all of the other mistakes as he got himself beached on the curb. Well, that's happened as well. Oh, still got racing happening towards the back, though. Remember, this is 11th and 12th place. Agius getting the move done in the McLaren against his compatriot in the McLaren. A nice switchback, though, from Gat as they go side by side through to Goddard's. But I think the move is going to be all done and dusted. Got a stricken car, actually.
Schmieg out of fuel.
Schmieg, who is out of fuel. So that's his race done before he's even managed to get to the checkered flag as a result. So as a result, they jump up to 10th place to Zagius with a nice switchback, who will now finish as a result in the top 10. Great stuff.
9 championship points, remember, from a car that was damaged in the pits for 3 minutes out there. That's a huge result. And there is the stricken and lonely figure of Jens Schmieg, who will not get any help to come over towards the line. And it's the one thing you don't want to do in a race like this, run out of fuel. There's your last finish on the leading lap. Bart Shish, quiet race in the D-Rank Squad racing car, but that BMW will be very happy with the race result that was there and was accredited. But ultimately, a tough day of racing right up at the point. But Aaron De Battista is the one driver who's going to have the biggest smile of anybody else as they all try and avoid each other here on their cool laps as they finish on up. But really here, James, a race where Aaron De Battista now has stamped himself as a driver who's not just got pace and shows it on occasion, but now wants to be a championship race winner.
Well, that's the critical thing for De Battista, isn't it, in the end as well, because that's a man who, well, just knew that he didn't have the pace versus those around him, but it was all about the consistency. Just keep it clean, keep it nice and cool, nice and easy, and you will take a Grand Prix victory. So fantastic stuff from De Battista. Muscat in second as well, decent effort from the Aston Martin. Manduka will be disappointed with third in the end, to be honest with you, and I never thought a podium position would be disappointing, to be honest with you, but for Manduka, he should have really been up there and winning it, but just it wasn't his day today. And fair play to Jamie Smith, by the way, 45 seconds back from the rest of the field, but Pache did get close in the end despite all of it, and he managed to just hold on to 5th.
Yeah, George Page was pretty much as close as you could possibly get without gaining that top 5 finish. We'll certainly be looking to rebound at the second round of the championship, and that gives us a wonderful chance to talk about where we go from here and where we go to next, because it's Brands Hatch on the horizon in 7 days. In a number of respects, very similar to this circuit at Donnington Park, but the big key is that the elevation changes are a lot higher and the overtaking places are even more difficult than here at Donnington.
Yeah, that's the critical thing, isn't it? Because the rest of the calendar is offering different opportunities for challengers as well. Brands Hatch is where we're at next, as we said. A slightly tighter circuit, I'd say, than Donnington, but still as many ample opportunities, 1 or 2 corners where we could see some pretty intense racing, especially when the lap cars get into play. Snetterton could also be a big one, but Silverstone is where we may be seeing 2 or 3 wide right at the end in just 4 weeks' time from this point onwards. 5 rounds of racing. Who says a short calendar can't be fun? This is brilliant.
Well, short calendars require a lot of consistency values to put themselves into play, and that we are very much looking forward to. This is, of course, your MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup. It's powered by Intercomp, and it's in collaboration with GamingMalta, along with Hyundai, Intercomp, Sunshine Snacks, Level Academy, JACAP, and GX Trust. From James Otter and myself, Jake Sperry, this has been a Velocity Esports racing production. It's a day in which you have to stamp an opportunity missed out there today. You've got to look at Adrian Manduka, a perfect qualifying, which he struggles to find, and then a race at the start, which pretty much looked like he was going to wander into the sunset and he could have a picnic if he wanted to and win this race. But ultimately, the Teddy Bears picnic gets interrupted by Aaron De Battista, who with grit and determination says he's not just going to be a quick driver with promise anymore. He is gunning for a championship. He takes the opening round here at Donnington Park, and now the question becomes, as we head down to the south of the country, as we head to Forcombe in Kent, will it be more of the same at Brands Hatch, or will there be a second driver in 2 races stepping up to the top step? You will see that in your MOZA Racing Malta GT Cup, and you will see that in 7 days' time.
This is the iconic oven-baked cheesy crick snack you've always loved. And this, it's Cricks too. Can you spot the difference? No? That's because there isn't one. Cricks still has the same irresistible crunchy goodness, wrapped in a stylish new packet. Same delicious flavour, brand new look. So snack lovers, get ready to spot Cricks in the snack aisle. Cricks, same iconic taste, new stylish pack. Now in sharing pack size.